Hello, and welcome to Every Thought Captive. I'm your host, Dave Sherrill. I'll be reading from a book entitled Before You Share Your Faith by Matt Smethurst. Its subtitle is 5 Ways to Be Evangelism Ready. If you look at the book here, this is published by 10 Publishing. I'll be reading a section from Chapter 2 entitled Check Your Context. Smethurst writes, "To be effective in our cultural moment, we must excel at asking questions. We will think more about this in the next chapter. If we don't understand where a person is coming from, then we risk wasting our time and theirs with a message that will only be misunderstood. Raining abstract truth bombs on late modern people is to risk being not just unproductive, but counterproductive. It may reinforce their misconceptions and calcify them in their resistance to gospel grace. This is not to suggest we try to squeeze biblical truth into the mold of fallen human thought. Part of our task is to create categories where they don't exist. John Piper sounds an apt warning. As we think seriously about contextualizing the message of the Bible, let's remember that we must also labor to bring about, in the minds of our listeners, conceptual categories that may be missing from their mental framework. If we only use the thought structures they already have, some crucial biblical truths will remain unintelligible, no matter how much contextualizing we do. God brings about this new seeing and understanding and believing. But He uses us to do it. So we should give as much effort in helping people have new biblical categories of thought as we do in contextualizing the gospel to the categories they already have. Bottom line, we must climb into people's existing categories, excavating their cultural assumptions for points of gospel resonance, and we must also, with the Spirit's help, labor to create new categories that accord with supernatural truth. In recent months, my friend Sarah and her housemate have engaged in spiritual conversations with a neighbor, Carl, not their real names. Despite growing up in church, Carl rejects the authority of the Bible, insists that Jesus is just a moral example, and dismisses the reality of hell. But his fundamental stumbling block, Sarah believes, is his view of evil and suffering. This is not surprising. His father died, then he witnessed his stepfather die, and Carl has struggled with drug addiction for years. It is what it is, he often says about his pain, and yet he also seems to use his story of hardship as a weapon to one-up Sarah and her housemate, or perhaps just as a way to avoid facing what they have to say about God and His Word. So what did these women do? They remained sensitive to the particular person, a unique image bearer of God, in front of them. They climbed into Carl's existing category for suffering by becoming to him, in the first place, fellow sufferers. Sarah shared about the devastating effects of an eating disorder, and her housemate was honest about her struggle to cope with her own sister's tragic death. Before, Carl had been able to dismiss these goody two-shoes Christian gals. Now he ascribes to them street cred and seemed to respect them more. Sarah and her housemate have been gently unearthing his cultural assumption that suffering is meaningless, while seeking to create a brand new category of supernatural truth. The greatest human pain, they contend, is not worth comparing to the glory that awaits Christ's people. Romans chapter 8, verse 18. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 17. Nor is the brokenness of this world worth comparing to the depth of our need for forgiveness of sin, which only Christ can provide. Mark chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. The conversations continue, and Carl's story isn't over. Sarah and her housemate remain intentional and hopeful because they trust a big God who does miracles in human hearts. Thank you for spending time with me today. May God bless you richly in Christ. We'll see you again soon, God willing.